Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. The Indian Coast Guard seized 5.5 tons of methamphetamine off the Andaman and Nicobar Islands on Sunday night. Now, this shipment seized from a boat weighed as much as 5 Maruti compact cars, and it's worth 36,000 crores, believe it or not. This is the largest seizure of drugs by any Indian agency. Now, this seizure, importantly, is nearly 2% of all the drugs seized by all enforcement agencies in all of Southeast Asia over the last year. That's in 2023. But these seizures are also in a region where there's chaos. Myanmar is in the grip of civil war for over 2 years. Bangladesh has been unstable for the last few months. Manipur has seen unrest for over 18 months now. Now we know that instability fuels the drug trade, and the drug trade in turn fuels instability. This is the case all over the world, whether it's South America or Afghanistan. But what do these shipments, these very large drug seizures mean for India, which is located at the center of two golden regions, the so-called Golden Crescent and the Golden Triangle, which grow a bulk of the world's narcotics, Afghanistan and Myanmar. Now, reports suggest that the number of drug users in India has reached 292 million. That's nearly 3 crore people. And that's worryingly a 20% increase over the past decade. And this epidemic, this drug epidemic, is being fueled by the easy availability of drugs like crystal meth. Now, joining me to discuss this problem are former Director General of the Coast Guard, Mr. Prabhakaran Palleri, author and journalist Savio Rodriguez, and joining me in the studio is my colleague Deepak Badana. Dr. Palleri, I want to start by asking you this. Firstly, welcome to the News9 Plus show, gentlemen. Dr. Palleri, what is the significance of this drug bust? I mean, the Coast Guard, which you were one of the founding members of, one of the early recruits into the Indian Coast Guard, has done admirably well in this seizure. 5.5 tons of methamphetamine. How significant is this drug bust to your mind?
The Coast Guard has the law charter in its charter, enforcement of maritime law in the ocean terrain, besides other activities. So as part of this enforcement of law, I will say this is just one of those incidents. Nothing very special according to me, that they did their job of intercepting.
They did their job, Dr. Palleri. It's very good that we have our agencies out at sea, intercepting such historic shipments, such substantially large shipments, 5.5 tons, and it's good to have eyes and ears and agencies out there. But tell us the importance of this massive seizure, that 5.5 tons. Not only for the Coast Guard, but also for the nation, the fact that we are able to intercept such shipments coming out of a very volatile region in Southeast Asia, which I'm actually going to ask Savio about as well. But tell us about the importance of this shipment, this 5.5 tons record seizure.
You see, I can't say that from the point of view of Coast Guard enforcement activities.
Right.
We have been doing it from the day one when we started, and that may not be drugs, but that can be many other violation of law out at sea.
Right.
We started with smuggling, etc., and the drug seizure or drug interdiction is a later development, and I can see that progressively they have been able to home on the drug traffickers,
right,
and get them booked, and it's kind of what the DEA does or Interpol does. But let me tell you, Sandeep, that Interpol has activated their operations, and there was a seizure of 605 tons of drug interdiction all over the Latin American, African, and European countries.
Yes.
So, but for Coast Guard, for India, this is perhaps the largest seizure of synthetic drugs.
Yes.
Ecstasy. That's MDMA is ecstasy, what we call on the street.
Yes.
And it's a big value. It's not just 30,000 crores, but 70,000 it will come in. New York streets.
Right.
But the problem here is this is not like apprehending gold smugglers. It is like it's a different kind of item which is actually trafficked. But there is no revenue in this. There is a loss of revenue for those who are involved in it. There is no revenue in this for the country, but it has blocked certain activities which would have been connected with insurgency and not just drug business alone. But please understand, according to my way of looking at it or my research findings, drugs, arms, and human trafficking, I call them crimes three. Actually, all these three crimes are the world's largest crimes. Makes a lot of money. It's a transnational organized crime. But what is interesting for me to put it across to you, who is media, is that initially, many years back, I thought these were all single-handed kind of a job. One person or one team is involved, but I found that all the three trafficking, human,
Yes.
drugs, and arms are connected together, and this
Yes.
is organized with big transnational polycrime organizations.
Polycrime organizations, Dr. Paleri, very interesting. And, I've been following your work very closely on that. You've been writing about it for several years. This polycrime, a problem that we are faced with. And Savio, you're another journalist who's been very active in the Northeast. You've traveled to Manipur. And today we have seizures of this size, 36,000 crore. As Dr. Paleri was saying, that 36,000 crore, let me put it in perspective, is more than double what ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, spends in a year. One single shipment is double that of what ISRO spends in a year to send up rockets. Look at the scale of the problem, Savio, that's in the Northeast, and how much of a threat is this for India, given the fact that you have earlier shipments were in kilos. The Coast Guard would intercept shipments in kilos, and today it is in tons. Savio, break it down for us, the importance of this one particular consignment.
When the conflict in Manipur erupted, and I went to Manipur in the first month itself,
right,
and when I came back after our research and investigations, I had put out a statement to the media very categorically stating that the narcotics business in and out of Manipur primarily is estimated to be about 70,000 crore.
Right.
At that point of time, many people were skeptical about the figure that I had put out. We had done some computations. We had analyzed the market out there. Let me give you an understanding of the narcotics market in Manipur and around the area.
Yes.
35% is poppy, which is grown in the hills. Another 12% to 13% is marijuana. But 53% of narcotics moving in and out of Manipur is basically synthetic drugs.
Right.
Now, the synthetic drugs market, the poppy market coupled together with the marijuana market is reportedly around 70,000 crore. This seizure of shipment on a Myanmarese boat is clearly an indication to what numbers I had put out almost 18 months ago when this conflict erupted.
Right.
I had also very categorically stated at that stage that the conflict in Manipur is being fueled with drug money. Now, why has that happened? That has happened is because the drug production and the drug shipments which were happening out of Myanmar has moved to the northeast, in particular Manipur. And that is the reason why, and the border areas like even Mizoram for that matter.
Right.
Now, why has that happened? It's because when the conflict was happening, a lot of people did not have the opportunity to work with the drugs. And, either grow poppy or for that matter, produce synthetic drugs. And therefore, people connected to the drug cartels from the northeast in India ensured that the drug cartel moved to the northeast of India. Now, synthetic drugs, I'll give you an interesting insight into the synthetic drugs. The production and the chemicals required for the productions of the synthetic drugs in coming out of Manipur is actually coming from Tamil Nadu.
Right. The
So
precursor
the chemicals are
chemicals.
shipped from
Yes.
Tamil Nadu,
Right.
and then they come into Manipur via the borders, and then they go to the labs, which are
Right.
predominantly in certain regions which are a part of the valley, and some are moving to the hills right now.
Right.
The point is this:
Yes.
as the learned gentleman earlier said, you have three problems in the Northeast, which is
Yes.
clearly evident. Now, number one is drugs, number two is human trafficking, and
Right.
number three is arms.
Yes.
And all that is happening and being accentuated after the conflict in Myanmar.
Right,
And
absolutely.
therefore, now with Bangladesh being in conflict,
Yes.
you're going to have more such seizures happening, because narcotics
Yes.
is fueling the terrorism that is happening in all parts of the world. Whether
Right.
you look at Hezbollah, whether you
Yes.
look at Hamas, the
Right.
money is coming through narcotics.
Money is coming through narcotics, Savio. Well put. And in fact, Deepak, my colleague here, has been looking at the Northeast very closely. He studies Myanmar, of course, the recent crisis in Bangladesh as well. Deepak, you've been looking at this problem in the Northeast. Explain to us what the surge in meth in the region over the last 1 year, what this actually means for the stability. And as Dr. Paleri and of course Savio was saying, the fact that there is a poly crisis there. You have drugs, you have arms shipments, and you have human trafficking. Explain for us the real impact on India's national security because of these three crises coming together, and of course this lucrative trade that the drugs represent for the traffickers.
Let me start with some of the trends that we've seen in the narcotics trade in the past 2-3 years.
Right.
This is evident both in the Golden Triangle and
Right.
in the Golden Crescent. So what's happened is that earlier, both these regions were primary suppliers of opium and heroin
Yes.
across the world. Today, you're seeing a shift away from opium towards crystal meth.
Right.
Part of the reason is that the logistics are much simpler. Earlier, the syndicates would have to rely on extensive networks of suppliers who'd go to farms, collect
Yes.
small quantities from different districts.
Right.
Now, it's turned into a very factory-like situation. So you've got a small establishment, you get the precursor chemicals, you get
Yes.
your workers, and in a small, say, 100 square feet room,
Right.
you could veritably, run a cartel from there.
Absolutely, a Breaking Bad formula
Yeah.
in your backyard or in your.
That's insofar as the
Yes.
trends in the narcotics trade is concerned.
Right.
Then there's the nexus between, say, human trafficking, arms trade, and narcotics.
Right.
As has already been established, narcotics is the primary financial driver for
Yes.
every one of
Yes,
these.
all conflicts are fueled by narcotics.
And when you look at the northeast, particularly Southeast Asia,
Yeah.
you see a number of these syndicates who are indulging in everything from,
Right.
say, wildlife trafficking to
Yes.
the narcotics.
Yes, Dr. Paleri, this point that you made, this poly crisis that we are facing, this combination of human trafficking, arms trafficking, and of course this new upsurge in narcotics, where the UNODC report actually says that, and I'll quote, it says that organized crimes are lowering the production costs and scaling up production by using non-controlled chemicals, the precursor chemicals that Savio mentioned. Now with this scaled up production, shipments involving over 1 ton of drugs have become more frequent, which leads to further price drops as availability and affordability increase. This is from a UNODC report of 2024. Explain for us why this is a big national security challenge for India when you have cheap drugs flooding the market the way they are through Myanmar and of course through the Golden Crescent.
I may have a slightly different view, which perhaps will be useful for you to think further, and all those other two gentlemen also. You see, when I looked into this matter long back when I was studying on national security issues, I found the Golden Triangle, what we call, has got some kind of a traditional background which takes us back to the British Opium War,
Right.
which they introduced opium in Hong Kong and other places
Yes.
with the Chinese, which is it's quite an infamous war. And traditionally, those things stayed back in that particular area, and that's still continuing because there is no proper government for a long time. In fact, Burma was part of the British India. Now, that particular area, especially in the northeast border, which is actually have become part of Golden Triangle, I do not know whether the center of gravity of the Golden Triangle from Cambodia, Vietnam, Myanmar has shifted to northeast Myanmar border. I do not know that, but I strongly suspect that. Second thing is, in that particular area, it is all plant-based drugs, opium, cannabis, and all kind of a thing. Coca is not very popular in India; it's in Latin America. But the shift to synthetic drugs basically is for ease of transportation. There's an advantage for them. You don't need that much, as the other gentleman has said.
Yes.
It is easy to handle and easy to manufacture.
Right.
And you don't need too many people for that. So they will be sticking to synthetic drugs hereafter, because you can sell it to college student or as a paracetamol tablet or anything like that. People won't misunderstand.
Absolutely.
That is the convenience is there. The problem which it has got with the national security of India, yes, it is there, but it is there for every country. You start with the Chinese problem. The problem which China had with the British Opium War, that is the same all over, including the United States or any other country you can take up.
Yes.
You see on the west side, on the west part of India, whatever seizure the Coast Guard is having, that was basically heroin and things like that, because they grow opium in the Golden Crescent. But there also is a shift of MDMA. So what's happening today is that the plant-based drugs are taking a step backwards, and synthetic chemicals are coming in.
Right.
This is all over. And this being a transnational organized polycrime, I will say that the entire United Nations will have to look into it. It's not just Interpol alone.
Yes.
So the problem, the threat which we have for our country is more or less similar to other countries also. So it's a international way, international cooperation and coordination we need.
I'm going to ask Savio this. Savio, the Home Minister, particularly Amit Shah, he's declared a war on drugs. Now, as you mentioned, and of course, as Dr. Paleri mentioned, the fact that there is a shift towards synthetic drugs, where it's easier to make it in your in a room, in a small little meth lab, and there are meth labs sprouting across the country. The police will tell you that. But this shift to synthetic is not a very unique Indian problem. It's across the world, and especially in the United States, where you have the US, especially under the Trump administration, the incoming Trump administration, he's also put countries like Mexico on the scanner for fentanyl that's being shipped into the United States. Do we need a larger blueprint, Savio, to tackle this problem? Like you mentioned, that it is actually the precursor chemicals are being shipped from India out into these drug labs. They're being used to make the meth, and that meth is now coming into India and damaging our citizens. They're targeting drug users in India, and that's a very big national security threat of the kind that we don't normally see. And that's one reason that I turn to Dr. Paleri and to you, Savio, because you give us a different insight into things. Tell us what really needs to be done now, Savio.
So the Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, has been very clear and very concise and precise on the war against drugs.
Yes.
He has stated at numerous occasions that India will be completely drug-free by 2047.
Right.
Now, in order to do that, if you see the efforts of the government over a period of time, both at a center and certain state governments as well, there has been immense crackdown on narcotics and the supply of narcotics.
Right.
Now, if you look at what happened as a precursor to the conflict in Manipur, it was the crackdown of the government on narcotics that got the people at the background, which is, they've always said it was the High Court order as well as the ethnic conflict that existed. But the crackdown on narcotics was one of the reasons why there was a conflict that erupted in Manipur.
Yes.
Now, what is important to understand? Let's look at the recent seizure itself.
Yes.
You've got 5.5 tons of narcotics seized.
Yes.
Now, 5.5 tons is 5,500 kilograms. 1 kilogram itself is worth 6 crores.
Yes.
In the market.
Right.
So you're looking at a 28,000, 30,000 drug seizure that has happened, which is only a drop
tip of the iceberg. Yes.
Right. Now, coming back to another important thing which many people don't highlight, that drugs are directly linked to human trafficking, while arms, of course. But if you go to a place like Manipur, let me give you a startling fact. It is not men and women who are the largest number of human trafficked individuals, but children. Children are the largest individuals as far as human trafficking is concerned out of the Northeast.
Right.
And they are going all around, taken to all around the world.
Yes.
That is a serious problem, and the conflict has accentuated human trafficking, while it is also, pushing the narcotics business up. And that is the thing we have to look at.
Yes, absolutely. India's war on drugs cannot wait. With the kind of poly-crisis that our experts told us, the fact that it's not just the drugs, but it's also human trafficking, it's arms trafficking, and also it has grave implications for India's national security. And that's why we need to look at these shipments in a larger light. We need to look at them holistically, and that's why we have our experts here telling us why India's war on drugs cannot wait any longer. It has to take place on an urgency, on a war footing. But that's all we have time for this evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Paleri, Savio, and of course my colleague Deepak Badana. Manned fighter jets are obsolete in the age of drones anyway. We'll just get pilots killed. The world's richest man, techno-billionaire Elon Musk, posted this on his social media platform X. It's triggered off a global debate. Are manned fighter jets obsolete? Now, coming to India, the Indian Air Force has a requirement of 41 fighter squadrons. It only has 31 fighter aircraft squadrons. The Air Force says it's critically deficient in fighter aircraft. It needs to acquire more of these squadrons. But here's the one thing. The Air Force is also pushing advanced drone programs for manned, unmanned teaming aircraft, where manned fighter aircraft, team up with drones, UCAVs of the kind that you see behind me. So the question we're asking today, are fighter jets obsolete? Is there wisdom in redoing our acquisition plans, given the advances made in drone technology? Joining me to discuss this, I have two very fine gentlemen here. General Arun Sahni, Group Captain Rajiv Narang, and in the studio I have with me my colleague Deepak Badana. General Sahni, welcome to the News9 Plus show.
Thank you very much, Sandeep. Pleasure to be here.
I thank you for joining us, and I want to ask you this about what Elon Musk said. I mean, Elon Musk is, move fast and break things kind of guy, and the fact that he said what he did, given the background where he comes from, he's a tech billionaire. He's made his money in launching rockets of the size that have not been done ever, and he's also retrieved them. You have to take him very seriously, General Sahni. But tell us what the advances in unmanned technology really mean for our procurement process, given the fact that you've seen the Russia-Ukraine war and you've seen unmanned combat aircraft being used in the Israel-Gaza war as well, and Israel's war with Iran. Tell us what this really means. How seriously must we look at this, re-look at this acquisition plans of ours?
I think let me put it like this, that Elon Musk is known to make disruptive statements.
Yes.
And I think if I have to read between the lines, yes, there is a very important role for technology, and that has coming in, and that needs to be adopted. That's a different point. Now, when you come up to the issue of, as far as India is concerned, I think there is no other country in the world which has a land battle space and op requirement which is like ours, operational requirement. We have two adversarial neighbors, and I think with both of them, we've got contested borders.
Yes.
So what we're seeing in Russia-Ukraine war, where territory is involved, I think the time for conventional battle and an attrition warfare still exists as far as we are concerned in our paradigm of the foreseeable future. The issue that I would like to say is that I think what we have seen now in the Russia-Ukraine war, the impact with UAVs and unarmed vehicles have made a difference. Yes, we've also seen that after the initial success that Ukraine had, you suddenly had the counter narratives and counter measures that had been put in place, and it could have been tackled. So I think the answer for us as India is that where you have conventional threats which exist along your territorial border and your sovereignty is involved, you will have to concentrate, and the time as far as tanks and aircrafts are concerned is not over. I don't think that's it.
The time for tanks is not over, General Sahni, and the time for manned aircraft isn't over either. But Group Captain Narang, I want to bring you in on this because you've been studying unmanned combat aircraft very closely. is there merit in us relooking at our acquisition process? Because every year we're looking at more and more advances in unmanned combat aircraft technology. Is India spending enough on our UCAV programs? Like, we have very advanced programs like the Ghatak, for instance, but the numbers seem to be a bit skewed. Is there merit in relooking at our high-low mix of platforms? By high, I mean the fighter jets, the manned fighter aircraft, and by low, I mean the mass-produced drones, which can be produced in the thousands, if not the tens of thousands. Group Captain Naran, your views on this?
Sandeep, first I must tell you, no country in the world has really inducted a manned fighter aircraft in the real sense. Like X-47 Neuron, Chinese stealth wing fighter, even they are developing a supersonic unmanned fighter.
Right.
And they are converting many manned aircraft into unmanned fighters. So, yes, technological developments, they are very close to the breakthrough stage.
Right.
Have they reached it? Not yet. Will they replace immediately? Not yet.
Right.
But the higher level of automation is certainly on cards. Not only in military, even in civil, they are thinking of developing a regional jet or a long-range jet aircraft, commercial aircraft, with single pilot operations.
Right.
So higher level of automation is on cards. Are we at it? I think we are slow. Now I'll give you an example. If you look at our RPSA program, on 1st July 2022, we did the scale model, 1/5 scale model of, I think it is still awaiting TCS approval. Right. So devil lies in detail. We need to be sure where we have reached, where we have not reached. Here I would also like to bring out China. Now remember, China is not only developing unmanned fighters, it's developing man-unmanned teaming, and it's developing two different types of unmanned fighters.
Right.
And the next stage, I think what we must realize is what was happening in the Western world. Now it is at the borders. So we cannot be lethargic in our program. Simultaneously, man-unmanned teaming project is being undertaken by the HAL in collaboration with the Indian Air Force. Even that project is in the development phase. Like, it's not the full-fledged project has been approved.
So,
of course, the initial appraisal has been done.
Group Captain Narak, quickly, do these projects actually suffer from a lack of funding, finance, or is it a case of the services not being as interested in it because it doesn't involve manned fighters? Is that the problem? Does it not capture the imagination because of that reason, or is there something else that is the cause for what you just mentioned?
So I think you look at three aspects of it. It's not the one cause per se. First is, has the final project has been approved?
Yes.
Answer is no. Has the funding for the full project been released? Answer is no.
Right.
Collaboration amongst entities is happening, but who's responsible? What are the timelines? I think these are the vague areas which need to be spruced up. So we are there, but we are not there. Combat aerial CATS program is being done by the HAL. Whereas the UK program, the Ghatak program, is being pursued by the AD.
Right.
Now, what we must understand is Ghatak is also linked to Kaveri non-afterburner engine. Now, Kaveri non-afterburner engine has to be tested at a high altitude wind tunnel, which probably they have to go abroad because it's not available. Secondly, it has to be tested on an aircraft. Again, that is not available.
A test bed is not available. I mean, there you've answered some of my questions there, Group Captain Naran. The fact that we have not created many of these testing facilities that would actually test all this cutting-edge technology that you mentioned. And Deepak, lots of lessons there for us from these global conflicts. We are blessed with the fact that we are not fighting a war of the scale that Russia and Ukraine are fighting, or maybe even Israel is facing. They say that the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. We're not sweating enough, Deepak?
I'd rather put it in a different way. What we can do instead is actually, deep dive into what is happening. There should be a thorough analysis of the different conflicts, of the tactics, of the methods that are being employed. And consider this, that should the 114 aircraft deal come through, it will still take another 15 years. By that time, technology will have moved far ahead.
Technology would have moved. That's a very valid point there, Deepak, that, the fact that we have these massive, mammoth military acquisition programs that could actually, they take so many years to deliver the aircraft that by the time the first of the aircraft comes, it's already time for you to be looking at upgrades for that aircraft. General Sani, this point about our acquisition process being slower than technology development cycles, it's only getting worse as the years go on, and we are looking at very, very big programs that are stuck up, whether it's for manned fighter aircraft for the Air Force, tanks for the Indian Army, artillery systems for the Indian Army. How can you shorten these acquisition cycles and at the same time remain relevant? Given the rate of change of these technologies, the fact that you have now, for instance, we were just discussing it the other day, Deepak, wire-guided drones in Ukraine, being deployed by both sides, which are literally unjammable. But General Sani, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
I think there is no magic wand by which you can fast forward your process. The Make in India program seems to have started well.
Right.
We seem to be on a firm footing. And I mean, just to put it in record, I think the first set of artillery guns are coming in now by the Tata Bharat Forge. I think the bid has been opened, so it's a matter of time.
Right.
The issue, yes, I agree with you. The biggest problem for a developing country is what to devote on niche technologies, current requirements, and future acquisitions. And the capability and capacity development. For a serviceman, I would want everything yesterday, but that's not possible.
Yes.
And similar niche technologies are not going to be provided by anybody from outside.
Right.
So I presume the R&D aspect which needed to get a greater impetus, it seems to have been given by the Prime Minister, where he has now roped in even the private industry to start being accountable.
Right.
So I think this public-private partnership is what is the way forward today.
Right.
And some of it has started happening. I totally agree with you that if I today had to take a stock of what is the requirements and what is the status, yes, it couldn't look very promising. But the point is the start has already been made. And I think the problem is really to get down from TRP 1 to TRP 5 level. But I think it's 5, 6 and 7 where the story lies.
Yes.
So I think the level of 4, 5 is available. We've been with the MiGs, we've been with the Sukhois, we've been as I can see it, these aircrafts were assembled. We have found parts that are manufactured in India. We have looked at replacements and upgradations, which is here. So the basic technologies exist today within the country. I think now it's moving it into the next realm where you're talking about MUMTs. You're talking about these new age weapon systems with new technologies. There is a process of development, and I think we are on the right line. I totally agree. This efforts of DRDO reforms, corporatization of the OFB, giving strategic assets and requirements to the private industry has started making a difference. So I'm basically, as a soldier, an optimist. Yes, today things don't look promising, but at least thank God for it that we have started the process here.
Yes.
I mean, the positive list which the Prime Minister had enunciated. Look at emergency purchases. He was so conscious of our procurement processes that to meet deficiencies, we've had EP1 to EP5, emergency purchases. Very shortened this whole bureaucratic hurdle which existed in our processes and procedures.
Right.
And it within the powers of the 3 vice chiefs and the armed forces. And so that has given a fillip. So our current challenges are getting addressed. The future challenges people have started looking at, and I think he's given the right message to industry and to the DRDO and other organizations.
Yeah, very important points there, sir, that the public-private partnership is really important. While we're talking about manned, unmanned teaming, this private-public partnership is actually literally the cornerstone of our entire military-industrial complex. But quick follow-on question, Jan Sani, but given again, back to my favorite topic, the fact that you're looking at these developments in technology, would you want to, for instance, replace all 2,300 or so T-72 tanks with another 2,300 new battle tanks? Or would you look at a kind of a manned-unmanned teaming up where you'd have like ground drones, for instance, that could do a lot of the heavy lifting as far as tanks are concerned, and similarly for fighter aircraft as well?
It's an absolutely brilliant question. Let me just put it like this, that today the policy of the armed forces is absolutely transparent. You have 30% which are current, 40% equipment which is moving towards obsolescence, and you've got 30% new age technologies or the latest current that you would like to get in.
Right.
Yes, we are a little slow on this 30% which has to be of the new age, but undoubtedly the age of the current set of equipment is not over.
Right.
What you have to see today is use technology to upgrade. Just look at the T-72 tank if you have to look at it.
Yes.
Get it smarter munitions. Give it the capacity today which is available thanks to 5G and all these mesh kind of technologies available. Let the ISR be available to the tank commander directly on a facsimile or exactly on a video conferencing capability, which is happening. It's already in the process being inducted selectively as pilot projects. You require to have the UAVs coming in and counter drone systems. So the organization structures of the reconnaissance troops are going to have UAV troops which you can launch. We have UAVs which can move on supporting all mobility vehicles to be opened up and utilized to give you immediate eyes and ears across a hump, which is like the artillery which is there to fire wherever you want it to see. So I think along with satellite communication, these capacities of long range, which you have got the male UAVs that we have already got, which are operating at different heights. We are going into that. We're trying to avoid and optimizing the hassles that exist today with manpower and other impediments. We've gone in for looking at logistic drones. We are looking at the loiter munitions that have come in to support these troops in action, both at the Air Force level, for looking at bringing out, and as far as the army is concerned, to support the activity as it's going along. So this whole meshing of tactics and operational strategy, using the new, the current, and the one which not so current, if I have to put it, obsolescence doesn't mean that it is not functional. It means, yes, there is a large amount of equipment which looks at carrying out your support structures or supporting the action as it is. So we are on the right track. Yes, a little slow, but I'm a diehard optimist here. I think today, with all these theaterizations talking about cutting down the UDA cycle, utilization of these, I think India is on a firm footing, and I don't think we need to get too. Yes, we need to work faster on newer technologies, make us more efficient and effective. But that doesn't mean that we are not capable today. And we've got a great leadership, political and military.
Absolutely. We have got a political and military leadership that's in sync. But thank you very much for putting that into perspective, General Sani. I'm afraid we're completely out of time. Thank you for joining us this evening. Talk about these advances in drone technology, and of course we began by talking about Elon Musk, but we're looking at how Elon Musk's statement on manned and unmanned systems could actually be utilized by India to relook at its acquisition and its battle plans when it comes to combat drones and unmanned ground systems. So thank you very much, Group Captain Narang, and of course my colleague Deepak Badana, for talking about the advances in drone technology and where India needs to step up and speed up things.